Okay, we're on there.
So we're expecting Ghana.
I can be here for 40 minutes now, but I'll go off and
Do we know anybody else?
Yes, I'll do. This is why I'm sitting here. So there are 0 viewers at the moment.
We're expecting a few from Israel, apparently.
Israel? Europe?
Europe.
Yeah, well, so's half and North Africa. I mean, I like inclusive, but yeah. Okay. I think we have. Yeah, someone came on and then went. Yeah.
Probably should dance.
Get my tuba. I'll frighten them off. I need to warm up. Yes, you can't see it though. It says 0 viewers at the moment. So we're waiting for band.
They take part.
I'm guessing so, yes. What it usually does when I've done this before is that it'll focus on whoever's speaking and then yeah.
John, do you prime us on the current situation before we start the public chat?
We are on public chat.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm unaware of everything apart from my time down there. So I know most of it, but I did wonder how much time there was. Well, yeah, exactly. And I don't know the big picture of that.
So we are live. Yes, but we are on YouTube as well.
Should we give them a couple of minutes to start anyway?
Yeah, Van might not know where we are, but you will probably not have access to the wiki stuff. What I'll do is I'll do a quick review of this. It's on the schedule, but yeah. I'll just do a quick review to find the rock fans and then the white box come back.
Wait for the product pass. Those join us to start anyway.
We'll end up being something. Oh, I'm gonna see.
I think you ought to be in there, otherwise it's a bit.
Yeah, me too.
If you said outside to speak, it's not very.
Yeah, you're not part of the chat.
Yeah. Yes, you move across that.
It would be better if we were in the screen, I think.
Really?
Front row.
Go on, Jonathan.
We can come here if you want. Yeah, not on the way.
All I see is
Big bully.
Yeah.
No, big thank
Hello, Rima, can you hear us? We got sound, eh?
Properly. Anyone else want to join on a phone or something? The chat message.
Hi everybody, can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi.
Hi, Rima.
I don't know who else is coming, but they seem to be a bit late, so.
Hey Rimmer.
Hi Fabio.
No guaranteed of service.
Okay, we're struggling.
Hello all others. So,
Right. I'm John Finner. I'm the full report this meeting. And what it's about is EuroPython. We've just had a very successful EuroPython 2 months ago in Berlin. A number of us here attended that. I think all agree it was a great success.
Yeah.
Underneath it all, what most people were unaware of was that there was a massive breakdown in communications between EuroPython. That is all certainly not the case. But and held in Charleroi was the result of a lot of because the rolling gap up. They're still struggling with the technology. Let's carry on. So the first one was held in Belgium, in Charleroi, in 2002. I think the idea to name Europe they have come from Martin Parson, who was one of the involved. I think company really running. He even put up his houses. But they weren't prepared to publish for a second year. So, following the building in Pennsylvania, where we got to, and the first one building
Hangout, it seems like there's 3 people in Hangout. Yeah, there's, if you go down to the page, there's another link in the Hangout. If you go down the page, down there somewhere there's a Hangout link. If you refresh the page, there will be
we're not
I can send you the link to the Hangout. Okay, I sent you the Hangout link. Oh. Hello?
Hi, Mike.
I cannot hear anything, it's just hear some very strange noises.
Yes, yes. Connection is very bad on their side, I think.
Because I just was in the appear-in thing and nobody there, and it's only Moshe. I don't know how it works with 2 things at the same time. Hmm.
Are we back?
We're on 3G now. So this might work.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
Thanks,
So,
Jeffrey.
Thank you,
We're having
Jeffrey.
trouble with the technology, but thanks to Jeffrey French, we're getting there. Okay, where did I got to? Vilnius.
And the last conference of Vilnius.
Yeah, so the next two are in Birmingham in the UK, and the Birmingham team helped with the Vilnius preceding one. Then the next three were in Florence, and highly successful and enjoyable, I'm told, although I have no experience with that. But the Italian team had not assisted with the UK conference, and following Florence, it's been one in Berlin this year, and I believe the German team did not assist the Italian team right before. So that attempt at ensuring continuity was not maintained. And that's been a lot of the problem with EuroPython in the past, so that every year a different team, for example, has done the web page, and in the early days it never worked one time, and the team who did it burnt out, didn't want to do it the next year, she got another new term with the latest flashy framework that didn't work properly, and was unstable.
Right.
Sorry. So really there has to be a better way. Now this year the EuroPython Society board said they wanted some things done in a certain way, but that's where communications broke down and it didn't happen.
Bill, you're asking to set closer to the microphone.
Okay, I'm now close to the microphone. You won't be able to send me hearing.
We'll get too close.
Too close.
I haven't said at the same time.
How about here?
Yeah, I can kind of hear you. It's a little bit hard to understand, but I can guess what you're saying.
So that's the hit. If anybody would like to correct or amplify anything I said, I'll be grateful. Anybody? No? So we really come not well on the present, please, because I don't think it'll take us anywhere going through the problems. We're going to get past them and get on to the future in a better way. Now, my wife and I went on holiday 2 years ago to Malta, which was a lovely place. And I thought this would be a really great place to hold EuroPython. Got sun and wine and nice food, and they speak Arabic, Italian, and English, so there's not really a problem there, and it's reasonably easy to get to. But are there any local people on the ground? And I've discovered there are a few, and some of them come to Python UK. I'm not sure whether they're here this week, but. And then I thought, on the other hand, we don't really need a big group locally, because most of it can be done remotely. We can have a group that does the web stuff, that can all be remote, and the group that does the talk, that can all be remote. And that happens this year, in fact, in Berlin, because talks were done by a multinational group. The website was done by a German group, really could have been multinational, and so on. And you don't really need much of a team if you organise it right. And I suggested this to the EuroPython board, and I believe Mark Andre, who can say, confirm this or not, I think you've developed some ideas about running it as a work group.
Yes, we started discussing that on the board in February, well actually before that, over Christmas, to restructure the way that EuroPython is being organized, because we found there were multiple issues. One issue was that EuroPython itself got so big that the financial risk for the local organizers who had been running the whole conference on their own in the previous years was just too much to take. For example, this year the budget size is about €500,000. That's quite a lot of money for a small local team to actually handle. And that was
issue. And then the other issue was that we found that this transition from one EuroPython to the next did not really work. So we wanted to address that as well. So we came up with this workgroup concept, which is kind of built from the PSF model of workgroups. We have workgroups that work remotely, where anyone from Europe or even internationally can participate, can help to build certain parts of the EuroPython organization. For example, the website, or the talk selection, or doing the press releases, or doing the graphics, and all these things that you can do remotely, where you don't have to be on site. And so that the local team can then actually focus on the on-site support that we need at the conference, when the conference runs, and also to do the coordination of, for example, I know, getting the sponsorship packages all set up and getting the mailing done and these things. So that we separate out the workload, we separate out the financial risk, so the EPS will be the financial partner in the contracts and take the risk off. So we hope that this kind of structure will then lead to a situation where it's much easier for local teams to sign up to these things, and that we get continuity because these other teams, these other work groups that, for example, do the website, they can continue working regardless of where the location is, because the location doesn't really matter, for example, for the website, or it doesn't matter for talk selection. Those processes are completely independent of where the conference actually happens. And so that's the new kind of setup that we hope to now deploy for 2015.
And if I just add on that, so I co-organised the PyData conference in London earlier this year. We were asked by NumFocus and Continuum to organise the conference. We were quite daunted in the UK, and we as a group just came together because we liked PyData. The idea of backstopping a 200-person conference and hiring a venue in Canary Wharf in the financial district was really quite scary. But NumFocus and Continuum just took care of many of the details. So Continuum gave the financial guarantee. NumFocus provided Leah to organise ticketing, outreach for sponsorship arrangement, and running the website, and dealing with all of the financial headaches. So we as a local team just had to organise speakers and the parties and the marketing, sell the tickets. And so a team of 4 of us were able to run that in the UK with tens of hours of involvement every couple of weeks, but no massive involvement beyond that. So I think if it can be organised, that there is a team to backstop the bigger decisions and provide the continuity, it massively simplifies the risks the whole operation proposal.
Okay, so I think everybody buys into that.
One thing that the helping is we employ Eva. I don't know how many of you have met Eva. She is both the secretary for the PSF, but she also has the background as a meeting planner. She was helping us with PyCon before she became our employee, and she not only has the background to do a lot of those same things, helping in the same way Leah helped with PyData, but also being a force for continuity from one year to the next. The other thing that we've done is that we've tried to have the same sort of rule in terms of we want some sort of continuity of leadership, but we've scaled that back to say the leader of the next one should be participating in the previous one. And so far we've had more success with that because the leader is already going to want to, it requires you to go farther out ahead in terms of your planning. But a lot of times someone who's willing to step up to that level of involvement is already going to be a more involved person.
Okay, so that all sounds like a great idea. There's a practical problem there because I don't think EuroPython Society could afford to employ anybody.
Right, that's something maybe I should put some additional data to that. The current situation with the EPS is that we have about 10 to 15,000 euros in the bank. Details are currently not really known to us because Jacob was running for was running as candidate in the elections in Sweden, so he didn't have time to prepare the treasury report. But that's about the amount of money that we have in the bank. So there's no way that we can actually hire someone to do any work.
We are also going to probably have a problem with signing up for the venue because of that, because the venues, they normally ask you to pay something like 10% upfront when you do the contract.
Just wait until we're back online about Kickstarter, and then we'll find.
Can we just turn the camera off?
Turn the camera
For
off.
good.
Just turn it off.
Yeah.
Keep the default. It just enabled itself.
So just a
So we're online again? Yeah. So just to repeat, so because of the financial situation that we have, that we only have between 10 and 15,000 euros in the bank, and we need to sign a contract with the venue and the caterer, we will need to do something about this. So the idea there is to either run a Kickstarter to get the money up front, or to run a super early bird kind of registration for the next year's conference, so that we can get some cash in the bank, so that we can then enter the contract and then pay the upfront fee.
Have we considered having the PSF be a backstop?
Not yet, no. We could do that as well.
Well, just because one of the things that we had discussed with Eva was help her, especially if we were going to start working with worldwide sponsorships, of which EuroPython would be a key part. If part of what we could do is provide additional both capital and logistic support, maybe that's
What that we thought might be possible, but we haven't approached the PSF yet. Well, I mean,
I am the PSF.
kind of the overlap. So, is to ask Eva for help with doing the contracts with the venues, because she has a lot of experience in that field, and it would be great if we could tap into her as resource to do a bit of the negotiations.
There's a language issue there.
For the not really, no. I mean, it's international conference venues, so
They do stuff in English.
Yes.
Anyway, I think people may not be hearing you well. If you're going to continue this conversation, you need to speak a bit louder. But we seem to be reaching a solution here, because we have Dan, the chair of the PSF here, sitting next to Mark Andre, who's also a PSF director and an EPS board member. So I think there's a solution developing here, which may well carry on developing, reach completion shortly. So I think we have a way forward here. So now we want some work groups for the next one, don't we? And we need a venue. So we need work groups first and venues second. I have heard various rumours about alternative venues. I suggested Malta. I've heard a rumble, a little bird telling me something about Vienna. And of course, we could just repeat Berlin if enough of the Berlin guys are interested in helping. And I had a lot of feedback after my initial posting on this meeting from people in Berlin who said, yeah, I would like to help. So I think we now need to do something about putting up a wiki or something and getting people to sign up to different groups.
Okay, so at the end of EuroPython, I certainly got an invitation to take part in a questionnaire.
One of the totally talking,
yeah,
by the way.
Yes, and one of the was a few suggestions where you could cast your vote for venues next year, and I'm a bit unsure as to how that list was generated for a start, but it would be good to know what the results of that was.
Okay, the list was generated from leads that we have gotten from groups that approached us, asking about whether they would be able, whether they could do it, or whether they had interest in running EuroPython in their location. Unfortunately, we had contacts with all these different groups in all these different places. Unfortunately, most of those basically then signed off again, because they found that it was basically just a few people from each of those groups approaching us, and then they went back to their groups and then discussed these things with their groups, and the groups then basically came to the conclusion that they cannot do it because it's too big. now the situation is that we are talking to a team in Vienna, and all the other teams that have proposed to do it at their location, they basically all dropped out. So because it's a big event, I mean it's a big kind of.
All that risk is going to be mitigated should we go through the work group.
It's still a lot of work.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Well, I'd love to hear from the Berlin team, because we've found for PyCon US that it is much easier to repeat in the second repeat the second year in the same location, because you're just like, you've already established vendors, you've already established people, you know what's going on. Maybe there's a little bit of burnout because it's a big job, but a lot of the difficulty is how do you schedule stuff, how do you arrange stuff, who do you talk to? All that is answered. I mean, for the Berlin group, would you be willing to do it again?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so we are Berlin group. Actually, we applied our proposal for 2014 and 15 and had it, but the EPS took it back in January. I just pasted the link to the thing. So we are prepared to do it 2014 and 15, but the EPS didn't like us to do this and asked us to reapply, and there was no call to reapply. So that's the reason because it's not 2015 in Berlin. Otherwise, it would have been in 2015. But everybody was committed. But since the EPS just withdraw, nobody is committed anymore to do it. That's the short story.
Can you hear me as well? Hello?
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. Hi all. As an add-on on this, well, we did, at least I did, quite a lot of talking with the Berlin team, the components and everybody, and I'm still in contact with some people from the Berlin team, and Holger Krekel has helped me a little bit with this because of his participation to this year and the contacts and the language itself. It's easier for him to talk in German directly, and we have been talking about this because I from my perception is that it's not that the Berlin team and the EPS don't want to work with each other. It's more about how things worked this year and about the problems we'd had. So I think, from my understanding of both sides, the issue is trying to actually find a way to cut off these problems and start next year, if all sides can start working on this work group concept. So right now we had some conversations about if we can do this and how we can do this to have the Berlin team again for the next year. So from my point of view, it's not accurate saying that there was just a refusion from the EPS side to work with the Berlin team, because we made clear that it's not that. And from what I got from Olger and Veit, when we talked, it's not the same on their side. So I think it's more about finding what caused all those issues and making sure that they don't apply for the next year again.
Sorry, what's your conclusion then, Fabio?
My conclusion is that our bigger problem is time, I think, now. Because finding out a big venue for the next year is hard, and the venues have time issues in a year project, and the second issue is actually finding enough people committed to do it, not only from the local team. So actually getting the work groups concept in place and third thing is actually having a local team that is committed. Regarding the Berlin team, my personal opinion is that neither the Berlin team or neither the PSF had a really good experience this year. It was very hard and stressful for all sides. So I think in this case we need to check out if actually everybody wants to try and change this or have enough energy to do this. So there's also a commitment issue on this specific case. But my impression is that it's not a no or refusal completely. I don't know if Braemar or Mike, what's your opinion on this? But personally, I would like to think that there are still people that are interested in actually delivering another great conference like this year, also the next year, and hopefully, well, people will have the energy to throw away the issues and work proactively for the next year. You know.
So you're saying you'd like to see it in Berlin again, are you?
I think there's still a chance. I don't know if it's something that everybody can do, but it's not. It will be very hard for the Berlin team and for people in the EPS to do this without the help. Sorry, I think it would be very hard. You lost my signal, right?
No, it's still there.
Okay.
You want to do it in Berlin?
I mean, we really need help from people to join and help both the Berlin team and the EPS.
Yeah, I think the biggest issue is time now. If it would be January, it would be late already. But now it's nearly October, and it's very, very late, because the bigger the conference, the more time you need to prepare things. And 1 year is a short time already, as we experienced, because we started organizing in August last year, and I found a lot of things very tight because you get started. And if you would have decided in January to do it, different, because then you would have continuous things. Now we still nothing is decided, and it makes it much harder to do a lot of things. So and every day, this later, the harder it gets, because you might not get the venue anymore. And if you get the venue a different time, the venue might be way more expensive than it's now. That's it, because we had it in the summer, and there's so much. As the earlier comes, typically the cheaper you get it. If you get later, it might get much more expensive, to the degree that's not possible to do it in terms of money. So there's a lot of things. Typically, the later you come, the more difficult it is, and that's my main concern about this thing. So if it would have been January now, then the chance would be much better to do it. And the longer we wait, the less. And if we don't have the work groups in place, we cannot just commit to something if we don't have people to do it. We need enough people. You need maybe 30 to 50 people that actually actively work on the thing. Otherwise, it's not possible. Yeah, they don't have to be all in Berlin. They can be distributed all over Europe, but they have to actively drive the things and do things. Yeah, so to work in it, on the different aspects of the program, the website, all those kind of things, you need at least in each group 2 or 3 driving people that do the work and do something and are able to commit a few 100 hours maybe each in there to do it. Otherwise, it's not going to work. You need those people, and they need to be committed, and you need to have 2 or 3 to fill one position just in case one person cannot do it anymore. Otherwise, it might jeopardize the whole thing. If everything is just like, if the website is only done by one person, it's very risky. If this person gets sick, then there might be a big problem. The same thing for the program or these other things. The venue needs maybe a few more people that do all the things. So that's what I see. That's the groups we need, and they don't have to be necessarily at one place. But now the time pressure makes it even more difficult to get this started. If I would have to run the groups from last time, but there's quite a few people, like one guy who's doing his master's thesis, he won't be there, and other people. We have some those issues, and being late doesn't make it easier.
Well, like
yeah. Also, I think we should not continue with making it each time much bigger, that make a bigger event and so on. If you want to make a reboot or restart, we should go with a small conference and maybe have then people joining and enjoy working with not having this future of maybe 2,000 or 3,000 people there. I think building all these work groups is much simpler if we are going to have only maybe 500 people on the EuroPython conference.
Well, sorry, John, go for it.
Sorry, we shouldn't be aiming on making it bigger and bigger, though, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In Berlin, on the first day, I was at the conference center at breakfast time, and in came Aisti Kesminati, you may know her from Vilnius.
Yeah.
She hadn't been 3 or 4 years. And she said, "Hello, nice to see you. This isn't EuroPython, though, is it? This is too big." Well, but actually, it was fine. It didn't lose its friendliness on the ground.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't be making it bigger for the sake of it.
Yeah, my opinion on this, sorry, you need to finish?
Carry on.
No, yeah, my opinion on this is that both you and Raymar got a point on this, and especially in this precise time in our conference history, we need to be very pragmatic about what we can do and what we cannot do now. So I don't think we really need to think about we need to be as big as the last year, because to be honest, we'll not have any EuroPython if we aim to be bigger than last year. It's because it's quite impossible to get a team and work groups concept and grow and everything for the next year, because it's a lot of effort. Only if we just think about the effort on the work groups, it's a lot of effort to build a structure around this. And if we add the number of the attendees and the number of a new local team and everything, we will be burned out very soon. So I think now what we really need to do is try to find out the venues we have and the teams we have for the next year, and check what are the most likely solutions that can happen, integrating with the new work groups concept, and start from here. We may be smaller or much smaller next year, but then we have a better structure that can be scalable for the future.
Earlier, John was explaining if there wasn't enough time, that maybe the time could be changed. Well, Sarah was suggesting that.
Well, there's nothing hard and fast about the time, is there?
I would suggest that one of the things, I would suggest that you set a target size, because people are going to need to know how many tickets. That's going to control a lot of things about where you can go, the sort of venue you need to look at. It's going to give you a rough sense of your budget, a lot of those things. And so set a target size, and no, it doesn't have to be as big as last year. You could say, last year I think was 1,200. You could say target size, maximum 1,000. I'm just picking a number out of the air. And then the thing that you would need to do almost immediately is start looking for venues, because most venues of any size for holding this sort of conference book up to 2 years in advance. I would think that it would almost be the place where you hold it is going to be more determined by venue availability than by any other factor.
Absolutely.
Eva is in Belgium. She could probably help in terms of venue selection, including on-site visits. And at the PSF, we would be willing to, fund her going to qualify and negotiate the various places. But I would think that would be something that if that would be deciding on the target maximum, and then engaging with Eva would probably need to be something that would take place in the next 2 weeks, if you want to have a chance of doing it within a year.
And I want to put my head into that proposal with the working group. I know it from the European Postcross Conference. You're running that
running since some years, and the global group is growing each year to pick up some of the local organizers who joins the global team from Zing. And I think at the moment we should go with a backup plan to find a venue and think about, are we willing to scale down to 500 or 600 people just to keep the continuity of a yearly conference because of availability of venues and what Mike clearly said, it's a short term to get it organized. No way if we do it with a working group or local or whatever, just to keep it running and to have a backup strategy if we don't find a venue for 1,000 people, because 800, 500, 600 people is easier to find a venue than 1,000.
Also, on the working group question, if Postgres also have already got groups a lot of this nature that do websites and do organizations, can we not leverage other open source communities that already have this infrastructure in place and borrow their facility for a year and like PSF? Well, like the PSF, I mean, I don't know, but, you know, I think rather than, because it sounds a bit like we're trying to invent something completely from scratch, which is a good thing, but whether if the PSF could do it for us, or if the Postgres guys, or Perl people,
we spoke the choice. We have what the PSF has got. We have what the parties do, and we have what the Berlin organisers do. And they all work, and we don't need to be looking elsewhere.
Right. Well, what about the host then?
The venues.
That's just the venue.
Okay, so you're saying the communities isn't going to be a problem. You're saying it's just the venue. Once you've got the venues, the communities exist, you think?
Yeah,
Okay.
To me, it's strikingly obvious. The first choice is, can we repeat it at Berlin?
Yeah.
Now, Mike was quite negative about that just now, but I think his troops on the ground wouldn't be negative. That's my impression. I've had some good feedback in the past few days. I think the problem, Mike, was with your leaders. I'll put it to you, and not with the troops on the ground. And certainly at the EPS General Assembly we had in Berlin, they were very negative.
But the leaders, you mean? Right?
Yeah, the leaders, yes. Some of the leaders, shall we say. And I thought that was where the problem was. I think most of the Berlin organisers would come on board, but I might be wrong.
Anyway, the organizers or not the organizers in Berlin, I think it does not matter at the moment because the venue will be taken. So
well, that's the first thing we should find out.
We should find out.
Is the venue?
I think the first thing is to find a venue, and a venue with capacity of 500 people and above will be in a big city. And in the big city, you find at least 20 Python users, with 5 of them willing to store some swag or something. So the local organizers, if we have that work group concept, so that talk and website and ticket sales and financing and venue contract is done, find 10 people on site to really be there and accept packages. That's the smaller terms than getting the venue. And we did the same with Postgres, but we only needed 300 seats, and it was hard to get in Vienna, was impossible. So it's where do we find a venue still available in summer or autumn 2015, capacity of 600 people, and then the rest we'll find out.
Yes,
Yeah,
venue
so
after.
For venues, I did some research in Vienna, and I found that there are, for the size 1,000 attendees, there are at least 4 venues available that we could use. So there are 2 hotels that could easily manage 1,000 attendees, and there are 2 Congress centers that can also easily manage 1,000 attendees. So
are they available during the time frame, though?
I've just done research whether there are any venues available for that size. That was the first part. So the next part would, of course, then be to actually ask whether they have availability.
And you should ask about the price. The price is important. If it costs you $1 million, it doesn't work. Yeah, so there has to be in a reasonable limit in terms of price.
Yes, Mike, I had a look at the pricing, and the pricing was actually a little bit cheaper than in Berlin. So that could actually make sense, and to go that route. But I did not actually ask the venues for availability because I wasn't sure whether we could actually have a local team on site. Because if you don't have people actually living there in that city, it's very hard to organize a conference like that. I mean, of course, you can have come from the outside and then just help on site, but you do have to know a bit about the city or the venue.
Be realistic. You live in Düsseldorf. How many caterers for 1,000 people do you know and have experience with? We are all software programmers. It's nice to be on site, but in Stuttgart, I do not know anybody who can cater for 1,200 people. I would have to scan the registry. I have to get in contact. I do not know somebody who can do anything, and it's nice to be local, but I do not know the hotels in Stuttgart. I lived there for 20 years. You do not know anything. You have to research anyway. So I would say getting a good venue and then find, do we have somebody around? We need 10 people. It's even more. And in a big city, there are 10 Python users.
Cologne ran a conference in Vienna about 5, 6. There must be some.
Okay, so we can ask them. And
there. Well, I believe someone on the call is talking.
Yes.
So can we ask PSF if Ava can
Yes.
get venues for us? That's good.
Yes.
Yeah. So about Vienna, I'm contacting the team who's interested directly, and we are trying to check this. They are doing local research, and they are actually syncing with the Python group there to check how many people they got engaged to doing this. Unfortunately, the person I've been talking with was sick last week, so we didn't have the meeting we were expected to. But let's say we have a lead on Vienna because of this, and probably we'll have a sort of position from their side in the next days. But it would be good actually to have other likely other chances, options that we can follow. So one could be Vienna. The second one, I don't know, Berlin. I feel that it's not really something that will be easy to have, but in case of less chance, maybe we can follow this. If you guys think that it's likely to have Belgium with EVA and the support of the PSF, I think we could try and check this option. We had conversations with the PSF about trying to get the EuroPython Society closer to the PSF in the past, but maybe it wasn't the right time, and now we can try to do this. I also have, I think we could have a possibility to have, in the worst case, to have it in Florence again, even if, I don't know, I'm talking just as part of the team. I didn't talk with the other guys, so I don't want to talk by them. But I think right now we need to be very pragmatic of what we can.
I would suggest just assemble a list with all the possible venues and put in availability, about the price for 500, 1,000, or whatever, how many people it would cost, including the catering, which is important because if you go to a hotel, I think typically the catering might be more expensive than the venue itself. That at least we have some kind of numbers, something we're talking about, because we are really late, and those big venues, they might be taken, and if you come late, you have to pay a premium to get it, and which would prevent the whole thing altogether. And then the other option would be scaling down to 500 people or something, which would increase the number of venues by a big factor and make it a smaller conference. Those options we would need to read down, but we actually have to do it right now and maybe make it available so everybody can look inside and make some decision. Because usually I expected the call. There was supposed to be a call for the conference, but there hasn't been a call, and if there's no call, there cannot be a proposal, an official proposal. Actually, if you want to go by this procedure, this delays the whole thing, and delays because we talk about possible things here and possible things there, but makes those possible things reality can take several months. So I think if we would have a solid venue by the end of the year, I would be very happy with it, looking at the time frame. But the end of the year is very late for a conference already, so we need to push on the accelerator here. Otherwise, we're not gonna make it next year. That's my opinion. So the time is a very, very, very important thing. So get some numbers. Get some numbers what the venues are, what their availabilities are, what they're about the price you could expect. It has to be somehow in a limit that makes it kind of a reasonable ticket price, yeah, and things like that. So.
The venue makes it that we know the location and also can have the conference there. But the workgroup concept also speaks about making a website, speaks about all this work should have been possible to do parallel in not having find now the conference place. So we could have this ready for the next conference. This also is some part we can work without knowing where it is.
Well,
so that's only the last part is to find where to make it.
Well, those kind of works are the works that we would like to move to the work groups, and so the local organizers wouldn't have to bother about this. This is the really good occasion to start getting things done. So it doesn't matter if you are in Germany, in England, or in Italy. You can work on the logo, or you can work on the website.
Okay, I think we're seeing some actions here. So we want the venues looked at, and I think as you, Mike, said, we want to ask venues about availability and costs for 500, 1,000, and 1,500, let's say. That sounds sensible. And then we want a call for work groups, for web talks, what else?
Oh, we have a whole list. Let me just check. Okay. Yeah, right. We have a whole list.
So we'll publish this. Should we put this out on EuroPython Improve?
Yes, I think that's a good question actually. Where should we do this whole discussion thing on EuroPython Improve? Because
that's what it's there for.
Right, because EuroPython, the mailing list itself is actually meant for the attendees, so it's not really so much about the organization. So yeah, let's do that on EuroPython Improve, and we send everything there. The talks that we gave at EuroPython are online on the EuroPython Society website, so you can have a look at them. And they already include all the details about the work groups. I don't know whether I can plug in my notebook here. I can just show you a few of those, but I can just talk through them. So the teams that we have identified is one is conference administration. That's about doing the contracts, the venue contact, the tickets, the support and stuff. Then we have finance, budget control, billing and invoices, tax, just all these things, payment system setup, which is very important for these larger conferences. You always have to have continuity with the sponsors, so that's why Fabio, for example, did most of the international sponsors this year. Then we have a communications team that has to do press, and has to do marketing, and has to do the contacts with basically the outside world, and make sure that all the information gets put out there. Then you have a program team, which does the talk selection, sets up the various different talk formats, like lightning talks and regular talks, keynotes, open space, sprints, all these things. Then we have a web team that needs to take care of the website, and we have a media team that takes care of the video recording. And then, of course, you have the on-site team that basically does everything that has to be done on-site and cannot be done remotely. Which hopefully is not that much, but we have a list here of things that need to be done. It's still a lot of work, but it's mostly done at the conference.
Let's put that up on the path and call for people to join the groups.
Right.
Yeah,
I think we should set up a wiki or something to where people can then register.
Just a remark: the structure is pretty much similar to what we used for last year's conference. So the group sounds very similar, which makes sense. So that's pretty much covers it. But now the problem is fill the groups with people, that actually do something.
It's also not just fill the group with people. You have also to consider they do it because they like it, and so they must you cannot make an order. You have to do this, make it this way. You must believe that they have their own mind and are doing the best. So that's a quite difficult task. And if you are in a hurry or you have a very high limit, then it's very difficult to get people doing all this work.
So, because we're doing this Europe on a European scale, it's not. I mean, we're not just reaching out to the local people. For example, so there are a lot of. There's a whole community that we can reach out to. So it should be a lot easier that way.
I think that he was going to.
No, it isn't. It isn't, because if you have done this call in January, and do we have now any of these work groups with people filled? So we make something completely in a way which don't make people to run for these work groups. We're just dreaming about those, but the people, they don't come. Why don't they come?
They don't come because we haven't put out the call for the work groups yet. That's the reason, I think. It's not so much that people don't want to help.
Well, let's ask them.
Yeah, right.
I think we've talked enough.
Well, Ian wants to make a point.
Just a very quick point. I'll back up Harold's point and Reimer's. It feels like there's a lot of worry about
It may be necessary to have a small conference, if nothing else, because of the venue.
I think I'll make it quick. I'm just going to back up Harold and Reimer. I think a smaller conference is a good idea. It may be a very pragmatic choice. As an attendee, continuity of EuroPython is more important than a big flashy conference. So I just think we need to make sure one runs next year. Let's make it as easy as possible to organise. That's the point.
I'm with that.
Can I say something? Yeah, that's important. And one way to do it is to pay someone to do stuff. And if you have to pay a bit more for the conference, I don't think people really mind. I think most people here are time poor and cash rich. And those who aren't, we do have support for, aid with travel and so on. So pushing up the conversion rate a bit, I think, and then having a bit of a surplus to actually pay someone to do all the odd jobs that need doing and however much wants to do would be good.
I could also echo Sarah's point that if necessary we could also run the conference slightly later in the year, if that gives a little bit more flexibility of time. Yeah. I think Sarah raised a very good point there that it doesn't have to be in July.
Sorry.
I would, one thing that I can take as a concrete action is I'll be talking to Eva on tomorrow, I think. Tomorrow's Monday. I can. Sorry, it all flows together.
we all understand exactly. Yeah?
Anyway, I'll be talking with Eva, and I can. She has lists of available venues, and she can start reaching out to them. And so rather than sort of, hey, I think there's one. I think they actually have published lists of venues that can accommodate various sizes. And so I can reach out to her. Who would she coordinate with? Because if she's going to be working with a person or a group or the conference leads or whatever, we need to know who that will be.
We can discuss that afterwards.
Yeah.
I mean for the venue selection.
For the venue selection, in terms of here are 4 opportunities that have a
Go to the board first, because the board has not people that know how to organize things, know how things have worked in Florence, for example.
It's not cool.
And so
the board's underwriting it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Can I just say, if venue is such a problem, why do we have to say either it's a large venue, which we can't book, or it's a small venue? Why not do it, say, like the Reading Leeds Festival, and say we've got a conference, but it's 2 venues at 400 each that's easier to book. Be either close enough to move between them, or could be quite a long way apart, but still it's one conference.
No, this.
There could be more events.
Yeah, well, we can see. I think should presume the board can sort this out.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm saying I mean, I think
sort it out, right?
No, but I think the point is,
I think we've got a degree of positivity here, so let's hopefully at this point adopt some action. We're going to put something on the improvement, we're going to set up a look at it, and Eva's going to help look for a venue, yes?
Yeah.
Which is absolutely great. So thanks for coming, everybody. I'm sorry we're struggling with the technology, which means it's probably a good idea not to carry on any longer as well. Next time, we'll try and find better connection.
thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.
Microfighting.
So,